Hey bag ladies and bag dudes, I'm Sarah Lawson from So Sweetness. Thanks so much for joining me for book club discussion number 5. Hey everyone, welcome to the So Sweetness book club discussion for book number 5. I'm joined by my friend Tamara.
Hi everybody.
And we will be discussing The Hidden Thread by Liz Trenow, also known as The Silk Weaver, depending on what portion of the world you live in. So just be aware, both of those titles are the same book, different cover artwork as well. So I see Ronnie's watching.
Hey Ronnie.
Montana Wendy from Montana. I know Montana Wendy was watching on Sunday as well. Patty. So again, thank you for joining us for book club. We'll be discussing book club number 5. I'll be showing you the free video and PDF pattern project to go along with this book. We have one more book coming up next month, so I'll let you know the title for that at the end of the show. I'll be a little sad to see that book club is wrapping up next month. I see Dawn and Renee are watching as well. So we have a lot to cover. I'm also going to be talking about at the end of the show, even though this is a work of fiction, the main character is based on someone that was a silk weaver in real life, and so we have some information to share with you and photographs to put on the screen. So really excited about tonight's show. So I forgot one thing that I want to talk about that was mentioned in the book, and I'm going to read a little quote from the book before we get over to our questions, is about the silk and how it's made. So silk comes by ship from the east, from places like Constantinople and China. The silkworm, the moth, lives but one day and never flies. In its short life, its sole purpose is to mate and lay eggs. From these hatch tiny thread-like caterpillars that do nothing but eat mulberry leaves and multiply many times in size before spinning hundreds of yards of the finest thread into a cocoon. Most cocoons end up as raw silk, while others are allowed to hatch into new moths so that the cycle can start all over again. So the reason that I wanted to mention that, besides being tied into the book, is many of you know that we have a bearded dragon named Flash, and one of the things that she eats in her diet is the silkworm. So we pretty much always have silkworms in the house. I keep them in a little container. I didn't want to bring the container out and show it on the show because I know some people get squeamish about creepy crawlies like that. But the silkworm is a very slow-moving worm. As mentioned in that quote from the book, they do in nature eat mulberry leaves. I actually create them. It's called mulberry chow. So basically it's a powder that I cook with water. Yeah, I actually cook for the worms. And another thing to note about the silkworms is that they have to be handled very carefully. They can actually be killed by human bacteria, so I have to wear latex gloves whenever I handle any of their things.
Aren't they like this green color?
Yeah, they're actually a white color, like a bright white.
Oh, okay.
So I wear these gloves whenever I handle any of their containers, whenever I feed them or take them out. And once I take a worm out to feed, if our bearded dragon doesn't actually eat the worm, it can never go back in the container. It's considered like a lost worm.
That's interesting.
Because it would be contaminated from
the other ones,
other things in her tank. And so I just wanted to mention that. And yeah, we always have silkworms. I only let them spin cocoons just the one time. Charlie says, my husband did a college internship in Japan working with silkworms in a lab. Oh, that's really cool. So I did see them on one occasion start to spin the cocoons, and it's just mind-boggling to me looking at those cocoons and thinking that that'll be
they thread and
fabric one day. So it's just really cool. But anyway, let's get over to the questions. And of course, any of these questions, feel free to type your own answer in the comments, whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube. My husband Danny's going to be looking through the comments and putting some of your responses up on the screen. If you have any other questions related to the book, of course, feel free to ask those as well. And we have some questions for you also. We were talking about it earlier, and so we have at least one question that we'd like to pose to you near the end. Pat says, thank you, Sarah, for this book club. It has gotten me back into reading. I'm reading a lot of sewing-themed books now. Thank you, sweet lady. Yes,
Yay.
I love to hear that. Reading is really so fun, and it's a great hobby. So our first question for book number 5 is, what was the slump in the silk business caused by? So I thought it was very interesting reading about this, but it was caused by illegal smuggling of cheaper French imports. So thousands of weavers were out of work and even starving. Some silk masters hired untrained people like women and children to avoid paying the rates demanded by the journeymen or the professionals. So I thought it was really interesting reading about the trials and tribulations of creating this silk fabric.
Money.
Yeah.
Yeah, I pretty much had the same thing. The Mercers, some of the Mercers were importing illegal silk, I think from France mostly.
That's correct, yep.
Into England without paying the tax so they could make more money for themselves, while the weaver journeymen, many of them were immigrants, protested for what they felt was a fair wage for their weaving work. Remember, was it the Book of Prices, I think is what they called it?
I think so, yeah.
And unfortunately, it resulted in wage riots, imprisonment, and those hangings that were very brutal.
Yeah,
So,
that was
sad.
very extreme, and sad. The next question was about Anna, our main character, Anna. How was Anna treated differently by her parents than how other parents treated their children? What did you think about that?
There didn't seem to be a lot with Anna's mother because she had passed away, and you're going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But her father seemed to treat her more like a confidant and valued her opinion when they had conversations and we had big decisions to make. He was, what did they call him, a vicar, kind of like a reverend at a church. I think what made her father stand out was wanting Anna to pursue her dreams with her art and her painting and to find love naturally versus being showcased to find a wealthy husband to marry like her Aunt Sarah was trying to do. And we saw in all the chapters where they would have the little quotes from the Book of Manners. I thought those were interesting about
Those were
what a
fascinating.
woman could and couldn't do, you know, what her place was in the world at that time.
Yeah, I thought it was a very big contrast from how her Aunt Sarah and Uncle Joseph, you know, there were some days when she didn't leave the house and how she was treated there to how her parents treated her. And I wrote down 2 quotes, one about her mother and one about her father. From her mother, she had learned how to draw and paint, how to appreciate all living things, how to recognize wildflowers and cultivate a kitchen garden, how to sew and bake. All these skills she was determined to cherish, holding them close to her heart as the precious legacy of her mother's love. So that was really, that kind of struck a chord with me about her mother. And then her father, he invited her to sit at his side during meetings with the accountant about the family's finances, with his lawyer discussing legal issues relating to the church, and sometimes at parish council meetings if there was a particularly thorny issue to be debated. You are the only one I can trust, dearest, and I need you to be my eyes and ears so that you can guide me as to whether I am making the right decision. So it's very clear from both her mother and father that they saw value in her, not just as a future spouse.
And
to
she was
some
young.
man.
I mean, I
Yeah.
wonder if he was that way with his wife, with her mother,
Probably. It seems like a family.
making the decisions and discussing everything.
So that was really interesting. I know today these things are more common, but back then it must have been very different for her parents to act like that, I thought. Dawn says Anna was lucky to have a supportive father.
Yeah,
Yes,
definitely.
For sure. All right, so question, Pam said he saw her as equal in intelligence. Yeah, and I think other men in the novel also saw her as equal intellect. We'll discuss that a little more later. But question number 3 was, why did Monsieur Lavelle think Henri needed to go back to the drawing board in regards to his design for his master silk weaving? He did not take notice of the designs that fashionable people wore. He had been so keen to master the technical complexities of his craft that he had entirely forgotten the real reason why people love silk. It makes the wearer both look and feel beautiful.
I pretty much thought the same thing. He thought Henri was an extremely talented and gifted weaver, and he wanted him to come up with a design that would be fresh and current for the new and upcoming fashion versus a design that represented fashion on its way out. And I thought that was interesting because how would they really know what's going to be in down the road? But I think he was quite surprised by that. And then when he thought about it, he thought, oh, okay, I think he's right. He trusted, they had a good relationship, and I think he trusted his judgment.
I wonder if there were certain people in society, of course, higher ups, like they mentioned the Queen later on in the novel. They were looking to see when she got married what she would wear. I wonder
and
if
that kind of
certain
set
people
the tone.
maybe
It's kind of like now, like with Hollywood
That's true.
or
yeah, I guess things
social
don't change.
media.
Yeah. Kathleen, in response to our previous question, said women had very limited roles and very little choices in their own lives and loves. I guess I feel very grateful that we live in this
That we live
current
where
day
we live and
where
can
we
do
can make
what we want
choices.
to do.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Kelly says, I also liked how Anna's younger sister Jane was also valued. Yeah, that's true. They both were, not just the oldest. All right, so question number 4 was, how does copyright of designs come up as important in the novel? So what did you think about that?
I thought this was really interesting because considering it was 1760, and there really, I don't know at that point if there was a lot of patent law, intellectual property type law, contracts,
yeah.
Lawyers, kind of thing, but Henri wanted to use Anna's painting of the flowers for his masterpiece work, but Laval wanted, kind of really imparted on him, he had to get her Anna's permission first to use it, and that was what I thought with copyright. I thought he was not going to use it without getting her permission.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. In the book, Henri said, since I paid for the drawing, it is surely mine. And, of course, Monsieur Laval quickly corrects him. Of course it matters. Monsieur Laval spluttered. You may have paid for her sketch, but you have not paid for the right to reproduce it in cloth. If you hope to get the fabric commissioned and not widely distributed, do you not imagine that she will not recognize it and wonder how you came by it? So clearly, Monsieur Laval is a person of
a lot of integrity.
Yes, a good person. And my answer to the next question kind of ties into that. Janelle says, I love what effort he took to get Anna's permission. Yeah, he did. He did go to effort. Montana Wendy says, socially, Henri didn't get around to see the fashion.
He was too busy doing the weaving.
That's
probably.
True. Yeah.
Good point.
Everyone, what is your favorite quote from the book? So my favorite quote was really short but sweet, and it was said by Monsieur Laval, a clear conscience is the path to a good name and a contented life. So I liked that a lot. Something to strive for, certainly.
Mine was after Anna's mother died, she was dreaming of returning home to what she remembered when her mother was still alive. And she said she fell into her mother's embrace, smelling the mingled aromas of laundry soap and garden herbs that to Anna spelled love and security. And it just reminded me very much of growing up with my grandmother, my mom, who I'm very close with, and just little things that spark memories, whether it be the smell of something or a recipe or a song or something with the weather. It just instantly brings you back.
Yeah, I love that.
And I
love
know how
thinking
close
about
she
that.
was with her mom.
Yeah, she was. Dawn says that should apply today, but not always happens. I think probably that's about the copyright. Yeah, so it was really cool that was discussed in the book. Our next question for number 6 is, what about Charlotte makes her a strong woman? So how did you see Charlotte?
I really was impressed with her. I thought, considering the time period of 1760, and I even wondered if it was really true, and we talked about this before, being an intelligent, talented, successful, single businesswoman, but I found what was enduring about her was how she treated everyone with respect and kindness, regardless if they were the wealthy people she made the gowns for or the journeyman weavers, anybody in between. She was not patronizing to any of them, and her role was very pivotal in Henri's success, weaving his masterpiece, helping him get the painting and all that, and then also helping him get together with Anna. And I really wanted to know more about her story, kind of like one of the other books where we wanted to learn more about one of the characters. Right. And then when we read the epilogue, it went into the sad story about the son that she had that was being raised by her sister. And we talked about this before, too. I knew when she gave him that little velvet coat and she hugged him, I thought, that's her son.
Yeah, I kind of thought about that, too.
And I thought they didn't go into it, but the epilogue kind of tied everything together for me with that. So I really like Charlotte. I would have liked to have known more about her.
Melanie says, our sense of smell is really sharp and always brings back memories. Yeah, for sure. Montana Wendy, above all things, learn to put a due value on time and husband every moment as if it were to be your last. Yeah, that makes sense a lot too. Jana says, her perseverance, her honesty, her strong ethics. Oh, great comments from everyone. Thank you. Keep it going. I also thought about Charlotte. She's a successful businesswoman in her own right. She speaks to everyone, kind of like what you mentioned, society folk and working folk. In the same straightforward manner, all classes and both sexes are equal.
And I think part of it, too, was she treated everybody the same, and I think that helped her business. kind of
makes
to
sense.
grow, and because she needed the weavers for the soap.
That's true.
And then she needed the
I didn't think
wealthy
about it
people.
that way.
That just kind of came to me, yeah.
Right.
I thought
Vicky says the status of women was so different in that era, and some of it is still true in some fields today. As such, it was great to have a character like Charlotte. And we're going to be talking a little bit more near the end of the show, but I feel like this real life person that we're going to be talking about kind of ties in aspects of both Charlotte and Anna, which is really cool. Amanda says, I knew when I first read that passage, too, it wasn't a nephew situation.
it's a great way to put it,
Yeah.
Amanda. That's kind of how I felt, too. It's not her nephew.
How does art encourage Anna and bring her out of her shell? So Anna got to meet two artists in the novel. These two artists encouraged her, Errett and Gainsborough. She was very excited and thoughtful in her conversations with them, and I felt like she kind of held her own. They weren't talking down to her. They were talking as equals. Errett taught her how to improve her artwork of Henri's design, and Gainsborough said perhaps she will be the first lady to display her work.
I thought that was really neat.
Yeah, it was really neat.
And she really was excited about that possibility.
Yeah.
Said she was fascinated with nature, drawing and painting flowers, that it seemed to give her a lot of confidence to discuss it instead of just being the wallflower and speak when you're spoken to. She just like lit up with it. And she was really worked hard at seeking out the opportunities. As soon as she found out those two artists were going to be at those outings with her Aunt Sarah, she's like, I'm going to be there. And the two artists seemed very interested in talking to her, I think because they saw how passionate she was about it. And they were really gave her very good suggestions and advice on the art that she did not take negatively.
Right.
She took to heart. And then when she redid the painting,
Right. It was a lot better.
It was a lot better. So I thought that was really interesting.
Okay, so what did you all think about the ending? Did you enjoy the ending? What did you like about it? What did you think?
I've always been a hopeless romantic, and I love happy endings. So I kind of in the back of my mind was hoping that they weren't both going to marry someone that was an arranged kind of thing and be miserable and wonder their whole life if they were with the wrong person. So it was kind of nice to see Anna and Henri be together and be happy. But when you read the epilogue, and it said that Anna bore 7 children and buried 4, which for that time period was probably pretty common, losing children young. It obviously wasn't exactly that perfect happily ever after story, but it seemed from the perspective of her being a successful textile designer and their family business seemed to be successful. It kind of just tied everything together.
Yeah, I really appreciated that epilogue because sometimes either a book ends and you don't know what happens to the characters afterwards, or maybe the epilogue is like a short page or so, but this was a really extensive epilogue. I liked how it discussed all the characters pretty much almost to the end of their lives and what happened to them. With Charlotte, obviously, it detailed that it wasn't her nephew. So all around,
everybody's saying that they liked
everyone
the ending.
loved the ending.
I think it just gave so much closure.
Yeah,
to
that's
everything.
the right word for that. Yep, definitely. Janice, I loved the ending. It was informative, romantic, and hopeful. Yeah, exactly. Perfect way to say that.
Oh, everybody liked it.
So I actually wanted to share some photographs and a little bit of information about a real life silk artist. So I know you did some research as well. If you want to,
I thought the author. I thought it was interesting because on whatever the app is that I have on my for the library, it talked about the author that she came from a family that had 300 years of silk weaving in her background. So
that's
I
very
thought,
interesting.
yeah, I thought that was interesting.
So she's really invested in this novel.
Right. So obviously multiple generations, and I'm sure if you dug a little farther, you probably would find out more. And the story seems to be loosely based on Anna Maria, as we say it right, Garthwaite?
Garthwaite, yes.
She was an English textile designer known for creating vivid floral designs for silk fabrics, hand-woven, and we're trying to figure out how to say this, Spitalfields. Sarah said spittle, I said spidle, tomato. I don't know if it really matters. So maybe someone in English could help us with that. Near London in the mid-18th century, many of her original watercolor designs have survived, and silks based on these designs have been identified in portraits, which was really big in those eras, and costume collections in England and abroad. She designed over 1,000 designs for woven silk over 3 decades and was called the preeminent silk designer of the period. And I thought that was fascinating
Yes.
because a woman's place was to get married and
Yes.
be in society for someone to be successful. I thought that was really, really.
So
really
I have a little
interesting.
information as well. This is I also linked to several resources in the description of tonight's show. So there's a book I found that covers this person as well as some other women. And there's a few websites about Anna Maria Garthwaite if you'd like to read more or see some photographs. Danny's going to put some photographs on the screen, and I'm just going to read a little bit more. This is from the website Huguenots of Spitalfields. This is Anna Maria Garthwaite. Anna Maria was the daughter of a clergyman. She was so kind of similar like in the novel. She was born in Lincolnshire in 1690. Women from well-bred families were not expected to work but to marry well and have children. And these, by the way, are some actual
They're so
fabrics
beautiful.
that she created. And this is her artwork that you can see on the side as well. I love that jacket on the right-hand side, the blue jacket. Anna Maria had a talent as an artist and spent her time painting flowers. Her paintings were beautiful: petals, stems, winding creepers, sprigs of flowers, and cascades of foliage. She asked an agent to show her work to the Huguenot master silkweavers in Spitalfields. Rather like J.K. Rowling, who only wrote her initials when she sent her Harry Potter books to the publishers, Anna Maria used A.M. Garthwaite so that her designs would not be rejected just because she was a woman. In those days, men dominated most of the trades and held most of the responsible positions. When her father died, with the small legacy he left her, she traveled to London with her sister and set up home in Princelet Street, Spitalfields. Here she created the most stunning designs for the Huguenot silk weavers to weave. In those days, court dresses were as much as 2 meters wide and took 16 yards of material.
Can you imagine?
I know, right?
16 years, how heavy those must have
Yeah,
been.
exactly. She set up her own business, very unusual for a woman in those days, attracted her own clients, created her own designs, and became hugely successful both in this country and overseas. Very little is known about this remarkable woman. She died in 1763, leaving a vast collection of original fabric designs. The Victoria and Albert Museum in London hold over 800 of her works, and many other famous museums around the world also display her work. 800 of her works.
Amazing.
That is amazing. So I hope you enjoyed those photographs, and it was really fun to kind of read a little bit about a real life person to go along with.
Seemed like she
characters.
really, the book she based on a lot of things around her.
Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting reading both the novel and those other details. So I'd like to introduce you to the free video and PDF pattern to go along with the book. So I've had a lot of requests for this type of project. I did have a die with Sizzix for a coin purse, but now we have our own video that Danny and I created and the PDF pattern with the template for the project, and I have the purse frames on my website in case you'd like to pick them up, or I've included the measurements in the file in case you'd like to get the frames somewhere else or perhaps your local quilt shop.
You
So
might even have some at home.
yeah, it's a really super fast project. As you'll see when you open the PDF, there's not a lot of steps, just a little bit of sewing and then gluing the frame in the end, which you've made coin purses before, right?
I actually have your Sizzix die, and I've made the small one. I think the
Yeah.
bigger one's a little bit easier the first time, just because it's bigger. But they're both really fun.
Yeah, so I know the first time gluing a metal frame into the top of a sewn item is a little bit scary. Do you remember the first time you did? Were you frightened at all?
Yeah, because I didn't want to get the glue all
know.
over the fabric. But it's not that hard, and if
No.
you just follow the directions and go slow, it goes in pretty good, and it stays. I think
Yeah.
I used the one you recommended, the Beacon 3-in-1.
Yeah, I use
And it worked fine.
in the video you'll see I use the Beacon 3-in-1. I like that particular glue because it's not super runny. Tends to just stay in the frame. So hope you enjoy this project. I'll be posting it as soon as the show's over, so just give me a couple minutes. I have another little one as well that I
see
made.
the inside.
A little bit of bubble wrap in there.
So you can see it's pretty big. I mean,
Yeah,
it holds,
fits a
this
lot
is
of
the
things in there.
large, and
Yep.
the small one is just so cute.
All right, so that's the project. I hope you enjoy. We have one more book coming up for month number 6, and that book club discussion will be on August 20th. So I kind of had a hard time choosing book number 6. So I read a few sewing related books recently. Some had more reference to sewing than others. So I will tell you that the book that I decided not to choose, but I enjoyed immensely, was called City of Girls by Elizabeth Gilbert. And it was a really long book. There was some reference to sewing in there. The main character is kind costume seamstress, and at the end of the novel she was also sewing wedding gowns, but the book was more focused on in the 1940s.
And the characters more than
the plays that were put on and showgirls and that whole kind of lifestyle of being in the theater. I loved the book, but I chose a different book just because there was a lot more reference to sewing. So the book that will actually be our number 6 book club selection is called Margaret Goes Modern. Danny's going to put the graphic for the book cover on the screen. It's written by Frances O'Rourke Dowell. And what makes this book different than the others that we've read in previous months is that this is a book of all short stories. So lots of reference to quilting in particular. Lots of things that I really identified with in the book. Each short story was a character of a different age, so all different ages are covered, all different quilt making experience was covered. My very favorite short story of that particular book is the title story, which was called Margaret Goes Modern. So that one I loved that one so much. There's reference to things I'm familiar with. If you're a quilter, they reference products like the Supreme Slider. They mention Angela Walters.
So something
Gwen
we
Marsden.
can all kind of relate to. And
Yeah, it was really relatable and personal.
a nice way to end
Light
things.
reading. It was a shorter book, so I hope you enjoyed it. I really loved that particular book. We'll be discussing it next month on August 20th, and there will also be an additional free video and project. Been to China twice, and we got to see how silk is processed. It was really neat.
Oh, that's amazing.
That is really cool. I would love to see that.
Me too.
What else? Okay, so I will update the book club blog post with all the updated information, including the month number 6 book. I did promise at the beginning of book club that there would be some sort of contest to go along with this. So I will be choosing a bunch of random winners out of all of those who have submitted photographs of their projects. And you can find that in my original book club blog post, which is the very first thing that I've linked to in the description of tonight's show. I think we've had at least 500 people enter their photographs already. So you can enter any of the book club projects that you've made. If you made the Clydebank tote from month number 1, if you plan on making the coin purse, please do go to that blog post and enter your photographs. I'll be choosing random winners as also I'll try to choose a few fun categories like most creative use of the pattern and other things like that. So we'll be doing gift certificates and prizes for those. You have until September 1st to enter your photograph, and I'll be announcing all of the winners on September 1st on our episode of Social Sunday. So very excited about that. Still plenty of time to enter your projects, and some of them are really quick, like the coin purse. So please do enter. Don't be shy. We'd love to see all of your finished book club projects. So 2 quick reminders before we wrap up the show, and I post the Suffolk coin purse video. We do have a shipping break coming up. That's July 31st through August 11th. So we're just trying to get the word out. We will not be shipping any physical items purchased from the shop during this time. When we return on the week of August 12th, we'll be shipping orders out then. If you order digital files like PDF patterns or videos, those of course will be fulfilled automatically. And I will have limited internet access during that time as well. So
you're on vacation. Don't think about work.
It's so hard though.
I know it is.
Yeah, so during that time, if you do send me an email, I'll reply when we return. Otherwise, the Facebook group is always a fantastic resource if you have a question, if you're working on a pattern or just have a general sewing question. Feel free to post your questions in the Facebook group. All of the lovely members, I'm sure, will be happy to help you. And so our next Social Sunday show will be on August 18th, so right before our book club show. So we won't have a live show while we're on our shipping break, but I'll be excited to join you again for Social Sunday next month.
You can tell us about your vacation.
Yeah, I can't. I'm looking forward to it in a way, but also I'll miss sewing for sure. I'm going to bring some hand sewing with me, so English paper piecing, get a little bit of sewing time in. So thank you so much for joining me for the book club discussion. Thanks for Tamara for every month joining me as co-host. So I had a great time. Looking forward to discussing book number 6 next month. Again, that's called Margaret Goes Modern. So have a great week, everyone. Enjoy the new book club project and happy sewing. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.